Brother sun and sister moon, I seldom see you, seldom hear your tune. Preoccupied with selfish misery, preoccupied with selfish misery. Brother wind and sister air, open mine eyes to visions pure and fair, that I may see the beauty around me. I am God's creature, of him I am a part. I feel thy love awakening my heart. I was born Francesco Bernardino in 1181. My father was a very wealthy merchant. He traveled throughout Europe buying the best textiles. He had his own mills and 200 employees, carding and spinning and weaving the finest wools in damask, embroidered with gold and silver cloth, while kings and princes, queens and princesses wished to wear the clothing that my father manufactured. My father was one of the wealthiest men in town, but he was a merchant. He wanted to be nobility, and he thought that his only son, if I went off to war and I won honor for the family name, I could elevate the family to nobility. It was in my father's travels in Provence that he met my mother, hence my name, Francis. At least that's what my friends called me, Francis. My mother and I, we often spoke French together. And me, I was actually known as a young man. I was known as Leaky Palms. As much as my father loved to make money, I loved to spend it. I was always taking my friends out for a night on the town. Another round, another round. Now you know why my friends called me Leaky Palms. I was there to satisfy their every desire, whatever their taste, whatever they wished, it was theirs, thanks to my father's wealth. But my father had other plans for me. He trained me as a soldier. I learned to fence, to joust and ride a horse, and I was suited with the finest suit of armor. I won't soon forget that day when the armor was first put upon me and the helmet was plunked down upon my head. My mother held up a mirror so I could admire myself. But when I gazed into the mirror, I had a premonition. I said, "This is my death mask." And it nearly was. For the town of Assisi, a walled and fortified city, was at war with Perugia, a neighboring city-state. Could you imagine your hometown going to war with a town right down the road? We fought for land, and for honor, and for wealth. But when I went off to war with our neighbors, Perugia, I was captured by the enemy. I was stripped naked and thrown into a dungeon. I spent nearly a year living on less than bread and water. My family feared that I was dead. And when my father found out that I was yet alive, my mother, my beloved mother, insisted that he pay the ransom, whatever the cost, to have their beloved son returned to them. My father sent an emissary. He paid the ransom, and I was brought home. I was so sick, I spent a year in bed. I could not stand. My father hired a nun to nurse me back to health. She tended to my wounds, my bed sores. She fed and watered me, and my strength returned to me. And as my senses came back, she would read to me God's most holy word. And when I felt well enough, I would read to myself. But I did not read the Bible the way most do, chapter and verse. I read words. I wanted to understand his most holy word. I remember one day I came across arguably the 3 hardest words in the book. Love thy enemy. Love thy enemy? Is it humanly possible? The horrors of war that I had seen, could I pardon them? Could I forgive them? Could I find it in my heart to love them? Can you love your enemy? Those who have smacked you down, verbally or otherwise? You cannot change them, but can you love them? I was feeling well enough that sometimes I would take walks in the evening. I enjoyed the cool of the evening, especially when there was a fine mist or a light fog. One foggy night, I was walking the streets of Assisi. Have you had the great good fortune? Why, the buildings are this far apart, and the cobblestone streets. And as I was making my way, I smelled it before I saw it. The most disgusting smell. Leprosy. Do you know leprosy? The flesh rots and drips from the bone. If there's one thing that I despise, that disgusted me more than anything else, it was leprosy. And my first thought was to turn and flee, at least step to the other side of the street and over this man. But then those three words came back to me, and I knew what I had to do. I slipped my arm under his, and I lifted him to his feet. My intention was to take him home, to tend his wounds, to bathe and clothe him with the finest textiles, to share with him my supper. But when I slipped my arm under him to lift him to his feet and embraced him, for a moment he disappeared. And standing there was not a leper, but our Lord, Jesus Christ. And he reached down and he kissed me on the forehead. And he was gone. And I was alone on the streets of Assisi. Was it a dream? Well, I tell you this, from that moment on, I was never again alone. Brother sun and sister moon, I now can see you, I can hear your tune. So much in love with all that I survey, so much in love with everything I see, so much in love with everyone I meet. I am God's creature, of him I am a part. I feel thy love awakening my heart. Thank you.